Hello, everyone. I heard that we're always on the go, on the move for new things. So here we are, all of us going for a walk. And if anyone is on video, please look at this amazing background that Sheldon is on right now. But he can tell you more about where he is and what he's doing. My name is Otto. Welcome to Coffee Weekly. Today's episode is about getting fired. Isn't that something awesome? You want to wake up to those news. You want to have this your manager asking you, hey, do you have 5 minutes to talk after lunch? Doesn't everybody love this? And yeah, today we're going to talk about this with the most recent IT layoffs and how we think about it, how people are affected, maybe even we are affected, and our views on this. What do you think about this, Hendrik?
Welcome. Good morning, everybody. I'm from a park in Berlin broadcasting today. And yeah, I want to start off with some background, like what happened. Like first we had the Corona crisis, of course. Right now we have the war and we had the problem with big inflation in a lot of countries. That's why the banks increased the loan rates. So money is a lot more expensive now. A lot of companies said, okay, we need to save money. We cannot get money for free basically anymore. And that's when a big layoff trend started. So like we see it at Twitter, they want to become profitable because of the takeover by Elon Musk. Facebook laid off like 11,000 yesterday, and I think companies like LinkedIn, Microsoft will follow. So a big tech layoff is about to start. I can also see it in the Berlin job market. Like I was talking with people, my girlfriend, she was, for example, laid off. And I was talking also with some consultants like that are freelancers at our company. It's just weird at the job market right now. So it's weird for both employees and companies. No one is really happy on the job market. And let's talk a bit about the situation today. I want to introduce our last host for the day. Sheldon, how are you? What's going on?
Hello, everybody. I hope you can hear me well. I'm in a very windy Ireland, and I'm in the coast. And you can see, if you're on video, my background is a beach nearby my house. And we decided to make this a special episode. This is our 20th or 21st episode. So we decided to make this a special one. And talking about layoffs and being fired is something that I don't have a lot of experience because I've only been fired once in the beginning of my career, and all my other job changes were decided by me. But I've seen like the news and people being laid off, and I heard a lot of people talking about it. So I'm excited to talk about this today, and let's see how this conversation goes.
Speaking of experiences, yeah, I also never really had the experience until 2 days ago. I exactly had this ping from my manager, hey, do you have time to chat? And it's kind of obvious what it's about. Me being a consultant. And I mean, I wasn't technically laid off. I was more like informed that none of our companies, which is Spotify, contractors, or most of them, will not get their contract renewed, which means end of the year, I will have to find something else. And this is very sad. And also, I mean, there are different kinds of, cultures or ideas of firing people. I mean, for example, the US is very prominently known for walking out, which is literally that you have a notice period of, 2 weeks or less, or even in some cases with mutual agreements, you can literally walk out of your job, which I find personally very hard to believe and hard to understand, because just the bond between like you as an employee and your workspace, I mean, it's kind of crazy. You can just like literally walk off anytime, and that's it. It's kind of crazy. On the other hand, if you have super long commitments, for example, in most of Europe, you have very strict employment laws that say after a certain amount of years, you have like 3 months, 4 months, 5 months of notice period. Or in our case, we have some consultants that have 5 more months of their contract, but they already know that they're kind of going, which is kind of weird because, if it was straight from the beginning that it was like a fixed duration, okay, that's fine. But if you expect it to be an extension and it's not happening, you're like, I mean, I'm still here, but I know I will be going. This is weird. because also in some companies it's important that when it comes to sensitive data, because I don't know, I would say most people don't react too happily about not continuing being able to work more at that place. And for the safety of the data and customers and everything, it happens quite often that employees lose access quite fast. Or like in the most recent IT layoffs, it can happen within 15 minutes. So you get like an email or a call from managers like, hey, you were affected by the layoffs. I mean, if you're lucky enough to get a call from your manager, affected by the layoffs, you will have 50 minutes to say goodbye, or like whatever this afternoon to say goodbye, and then all your access is immediately revoked. And
I'm laughing here because I'm imagining the system admin. Like imagine, like I'm gonna talk one example. Imagine Elon Musk arriving to the Twitter's system admin and saying, "Hey, here's a list of employees. Can you deactivate these accounts for me in 10 minutes?" And then there's no shared group, so you have to go user by user. Can you imagine that? But anyway, continue. Sorry, I interrupted you.
No worries. I mean, yeah, IT companies actually do have procedures for legal reasons to revoke employee access for the fact that as a IT person, developer, you can inflict a lot of damage in very short time if let's say you didn't want to be laid off, which probably in most cases is the case. But you were just talking about the situation, being informed about being laid off or whatever that implies. I mean, for me, I kind of saw it coming. You mostly see it coming. It's like, you read the news, you see other companies, you've heard the company is saying, okay, we're hiring less or freezing or everything, and then you just count one and one together, and then, well, it's you. But I want to share one story that is particularly, not a good example. So Klarna was one of the first companies that did their layoffs, but there was, I mean, arguably, of course, because of the situation in the market, but also because of their excessive growth and overspending, and combined with that, they were probably the first ones to be like, this doesn't work. Like, we have to cut costs, and in that case, they cut employees. And there was basically this uncertainty. They were like saying, okay, boom, 10% are going. Everybody knew it, but you had to wait to be informed if you were infected or not. So every single employee was like in a state of shock for like 2 days to understand if they're affected or not, and looking for if they have a meeting in the calendar or not. And the worst thing about this, when there was like some teams where there was a list of people read that are being fired, was all being prepared, and then the person assigned to read the list keeps reading the list, all the names of people that are going, including herself, which is, I think, the worst thing. That, I mean, just imagine the trauma, or just like, this is like the worst experience you can do. I think it's a very big responsibility of the employer to make sure that the moment of realizing you're being fired is done as good as possible. I mean, there's no easy way to convey bad news, but there are certainly bad ways. And I think that's, any people hearing this, don't do this. Not good. What are your experiences?
I think
or heard stories?
I don't have a lot of stories, but I think that most of the things, like, or at least the initial part of this process is expectations, right? Because like, for example, for you, you're a contractor, so I've never been in a contractor position. So, but I would imagine that the ties between you and the company are less rigid. So I would be less surprised if I would be cut off. I would say. I'm talking about this because, like, for example, in Brazil, when I grew up, it was very common for people to say, "Oh, you should work for the government, because once you are there, you're never going to be fired. Like, it's work forever. You can build up a career, and you can retire with a very good salary." And this was one type of career, like, you go in and you're never going to be fired. And then there is the market where you get you're being a full-time employee. And in Brazil we have quite good laws, so it's quite hard, I would say, to have this walkout fire, as you just described in the US. But it could happen, I think, if you agree between you and your employer. But then if you are like in a contractor position, I think it's gonna be like just two entities being doing business together. So I don't think that there is any protection from the contractor side. So they could be like just fired. Like, hey, I don't want to see you anymore. From lunch on, you're fired. So like different levels of ties on the relationship between employee and employer. So what do you think about this? Like, do you, and also like, for example, here in Ireland, as far as I know, all companies have notice of 4 weeks or a month, both if a company is firing the employee and if the employee is asking, is resigning. The employee also needs to give the company 4 weeks of notice. So do you have, how is this like in Germany or Sweden or other places we've been to in relation to giving notice, surprises, breaking expectations, those kind of things?
So in Germany, I think it's also 4 weeks, which is the standard, at least, if nothing else is agreed upon. I was once in the situation that a contract of mine was ended. I was basically a contractor doing some web stuff during my studies. It was more a small job, which was not that bad at the time. But anyways, it was pretty mutual because I really was not enjoying the work. And then I think like the frustration just grew on both sides. And yeah, I think also the client said like, okay, I can save that money then probably and use it on something else. Yeah, it was like actually okay. But again, like I can just underline what Otto just said. Like if you lay off people, do it properly. Have the balls to cancel your work agreement properly. And don't like shit around. You can just be straightforward. Again, like there is no good way to bring bad news. So just tell them, like, for example, my girlfriend, she had a very shitty situation where they brought in the news that she's being laid off basically 1 minute before the doorbell rang and the contract came to her via the post that she's going to be fired. Like that's basically a punch in the face. And that shows a lot also about you as a human being and as an employer, that you are not really straightforward with your people. So just don't do that. It's never bad. It's never good. And yeah, I just also had the situation where I had to basically decline contracts. It's not like being fired. I'm looking for a videographer right now for a new music video. And I was talking with 10 videographers or something like that. I was just reaching out, trying to build a network, and like more people answered me than I thought. And I was texting a little bit just to feel like, just to see, hey, could that be even working? And in the end, I also had to say like no to some people. I mean, we didn't have a contract. It was not really fired. But I anyways had to tell them like, hey, you don't get the job. But on the other hand, everyone acted super professional, especially at that stage, because we were transparent all the time. And there were no bad feelings. And it was even like, okay, let's talk at another point of time again together. And maybe there can be also some positive sides to that you can have like good relationships with your old team, that some business connection can stay. Maybe you can get a client as your old employer as a client in the new company or something like that. You can share knowledge between the companies in the future if you have a good ending and you still want to talk. I think that's possible in general.
You were talking about the positive sides, which I mean, of course, is kind of hard to focus on if you're being affected. Especially, imagine you're moving to a country, your visa is bound to your employment, and you hear the news that there will be some layoffs. I mean, for you as a person or your family or your partner or everyone included, this is big news. This is like, okay, you might have to leave the country, or you, I don't know, can't guarantee paying back your loans that you have. So I would say in general, yeah, it is never a good news. And on the other side, like, you know, what Sheldon mentioned, that it can also be a simple, let's say, business transaction. So for example, yeah, if you work more in the freelance in the gig economy, it is kind of set from the beginning, you know, it's never being said, hey, we're gonna be friends and work together forever. It's more like, hey, we start off with 3 months. If it works fine, we continue. If not, it's a mutual, okay, you might be sad, but that's the way it goes. And even for employments, I mean, yes, you can be at a company for 15 to 20 years if you want, but the likelihood of a person staying, well, forever, I would say pretty low. And I mean, there's a saying, every cloud has a silver lining. And what I think is important, no matter of the situation, I mean, yes, most people will be affected harder. I think it is important to acknowledge that once you are being forced to move on, it allows you as an opportunity to grow. I mean, in my very like not hard being badly affected example is, you know, I was never really asking for a raise because I was not really super high performing. But now this gives me the chance, I can change companies, I can learn new technologies, I can get to know new people, new products, new ways of thinking. And I could also use this chance. Now I'm forced to find something new. So, well, I can just go ahead and ask for a raise, because asking for a raise when changing company is always easier than in the same company. So I always try to, you know, look at the good things. And I actually think this is per se, if you are in a good situation in life right now, can be actually very positive, because I really felt the amount of energy in me, like, oh shit, I can't chill anymore, I have to do something. And it was like kind of positive. Of course, on the day and the day after, I was super sad, because I really felt like this was the place I found after so many years that I wanted to be in. And the first place I want to stay for long is the first place that tells me I cannot stay, which was like very sad and emotional and close to crying in some ways, because you build up some things, you build some projects and everything. And well, but still, I'm actually kind of happy about it. I will try to come back maybe one day if that's an option, but I can't really say it's all in all a bad experience. I mean, this also depends on the context, right? If I was working, I don't know, as a PhD, I don't know, in biology, where the market is not nearly as favorable in the IT, well, things are different. I mean, you might know, okay, I have to search for 2 years again. You have to write dozens of applications. And there it might be harder to see the good sides. I mean, it might be hard to justify, okay, maybe you get like a 5% positive experience out of this, but maybe just 95%, you know, waste of time, pain, financial insecurity. So it might be hard to look at good things, but I would say it's still possible to take the time to find yourself, to maybe there was some bad things before. Maybe there was, I don't know, it wasn't the right company, or you weren't growing, or you just wanted like a change. Change, I would say, can be good. What are your thoughts on this? What would you do if you were told today by your manager, hey, do you have time for a quick call after lunch? What would you do?
Oh, Sheldon, before you can continue, I think your video is unfrozen. Your video was frozen. All right, perfect. Sheldon, you want to go?
Yeah, I'm gonna go and kind of going towards the closing thoughts, because it's now the wind is going heavier here. But basically, what I'm thinking about it is that like there are some stuff that we can do. Like we could, of course, like firing people. It depends. Every time is a different occasion, and for each occasion, there could be some mitigations. I've never been like on a manager position or conducting a business, so I've never had to fire someone. But I believe that if you build empathy and honesty and approach with kindness, I think you can do this, because it's a relationship. It's most likely gonna end, any relationship, and especially employee and employer relationship. Like you start a job, you know that you're either gonna retire there or you're gonna leave that job. So that relationship is gonna end. With that in mind, now going towards the employee side, I think the idea is that you always have to have build a safety net. Like for example, Otto said, like firing someone can mean that this person could not live in that country anymore. So like research your work permit and see what are the options you have if you have been laid off and you depend on a visa, and what are your options, or if you are afraid that you're going to be fired, start looking for jobs, like go on LinkedIn and see if there's how's the job market, and start and maybe go proactive, like start applying, and then you are gonna be resigning instead of being fired. So those were some things that I was thinking while we were discussing this episode, and some tips that I had in my mind for closing thoughts. So Hendrik, what do you think?
Yeah, so let me conclude with that. Always be prepared for the worst, I think, like kind of a survivor attitude. Always know what you're worth, what you bring to the market, because it's like really like in the wilderness out there where there is lions, elephants, hyenas, not a lot of water. So basically you have to survive in that, and you always have to be prepared. So something I like to do, for example, is to always keep learning like new technologies, new soft skills, always improving myself, exchanging with colleagues. So I know like, okay, every day I'm basically increasing my market value, like for whatever comes, if I just want to change a job on my own, or I know like my company is like funded and we are basically not profitable. So there might be a day where we run out of money, and I want to be prepared for that day. It's something I ask basically in every job interview that I'm in also, like, hey, where is your money coming from? Are you profitable? And if not, like, how's the financing situation looking like? That's basically a criteria also for me to go to a company. And yes, like again, I agree also so much with what Otto said. It's super easy if you're a high demand job worker, but it can be more frustrating if it is hard to find a job. But again, like you have to be aware of the rules of the economy here, of the basic demands of supply and providing an offer. So I don't know, like just be prepared and keep working on yourself and increase your knowledge so that you are always well suited for an emergency situation, whatever it might be in your case.
Let me maybe add on to this. So there's two things I want to give as my closing thoughts. Is one, the way I try to see it from a high level perspective. I can see some analogies of a company cutting employees or you being cut a part of your life, both from the perspective of your own career and the perspective from a company. I see it in a similar way as, well, simply, for example, cutting trees. It is inflicting pain to the plant. It is, reducing the amount of maybe beliefs it has and energy it can produce, which will short-term effective. But in the long run, you prepare yourself to be stronger, to be more focused. You let the main branch grow, in most cases at least. And I would say this is like a natural cycle that we can see in the market that every, 2000 dot-com bubble, everything bursted. 2008, we had the banking and housing bubble bursting, and now we have the post-pandemic bubble bursting in some ways. So I think it's just a natural process that is very important to be aware of, that it will happen and you will be affected and you have to be prepared. But in some ways, it can be a good thing. Companies maybe stop doing projects that are not profitable, or like crazy ideas like, we have so much money, what to do with it? Maybe they will stop with it for a while because they have different problems. And this can be good to get back on reality and to ground you a bit more. The other thing is, if you're affected, reach out to your closest friends, reach out to your family and talk, process this. This can be a quite traumatic experience. For example, for me, I was spending a lot of time just meeting people, talking on the phone, even though I was emotionally feeling not that terrible. I kind of knew it was ending. It affects one. And the more affected you are, the more dependent you have been on this, the more of your life basis has been taken away. You should definitely reach out to friends, process it. And some bonus of that, I think there was a statistics once that, at least in Germany, only 1 out of 7 jobs gets referred through official applications. And most of it goes through relations, friends, being friends with people. So take an opportunity, make friends with people, tell them, look for something and process it, heal from the wounds, and you will grow back stronger in the new cycle of a new job, a new chapter in life. That's my closing thoughts. I think it was a very nice episode, going for a walk, even though there might be some background noises. But we should definitely do this again. I like this walking coffee weekly. I would definitely sit down, have a nice brunch, have a coffee, and enjoy being free and having something new to look forward to.
Yeah, I think this one is really nice. I don't know if the listeners are going to enjoy, but the producers actually enjoyed it. So we're definitely going to do this at another time. And I need to find a less windy place to record because look at my hair. But thanks, guys, and see you next week.
Thanks, guys. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.